We are very, very delighted and very fortunate today to have Professor Nyarko of New York University speak to us about a special project at the heart of his research as well as engagement interest from bilateral trade, centralized trade, a such model for commodity exchanges. And here, he's one of the pioneers, breaking through research. Just let me just take a couple of minutes to introduce him formally. He's a distinguished intellectual, as well as a shake and mover in many dimensions. He's now a professor of economics at New York University and the director of the NYU Africa House. So he's so Africa-centric that he actually coined a whole enterprise after Africa. Africa House in New York is a unique entity that hosts, heads of states, influential entrepreneurs and business from all over the world to speak to engage New York University. And we are taking cue from what you've done in Africa House to do something here in London. So thanks very much. But also, Yao is the Center for Technology and Economic Development and the co-director of the Development Research Institute, DRI, at NYU. And I have to mention the distinction recently that he was awarded the 2009 BBVA Frontiers in Knowledge Award in Economic Development Cooperation, which is, I think, a mark of distinction very much here, I should mention. And he has researched across a huge variety in economics, finance. His current research is focusing on a cutting through idea, a technology in economic development, commodity exchanges and markets in Africa that she's going to tell us, today about, and then the determinants and returns of labor migration from South Asia in the UAE, as well as the impacts kind of globally. And I'm delighted to say that I had the great fortune to work closely with Yao. He was the chair of the Economic Society African Region Standing Committee, a position he has returned to now. But I had the pleasure to be his vice president when he was president for 3 years. So we did plan a lot of activities all over Africa, the annual meetings in Medical in Africa together. And I did enjoy it. And so much so that when he stepped down after 3 years, I took over the president and also served 3 years. So that was a great, fellowship between me and Yao. And I very much appreciate all the wonderful things we achieved together. But Yao has also served as a consultant for many international organizations, including the African Development Bank, the World Bank, the United Nations, the Social Science Research Council, etc. And of course, he has also been very active in university management. He is the former vice provost of NYU and managed the portfolio of campuses of NYU across the world in Abu Dhabi, Accra, and Shanghai. And we do have one of these campuses of NYU, just close to my office, actually, at SOAS, which is the NYU, London office. So you are still close at home. Yao is a distinguished person and Africa-centric and also a very concerned individual who is contributing to society. We are very delighted to welcome you here to deliver this research seminar today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to Victor. First of all, sound check. You can hear me okay, I hope?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you.
Victor, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for everything you do. I've been watching your seminar series, and prior to that, your work at African Development Bank, Birmingham. It's just been great. So keep up the good work. Thanks for inviting me here. It's also very nice to be at SOAS. When I was really young, my parents actually lived in London. And in those days and throughout, SOAS has always been like a big deal. You know, that's where, you know, Africa-centric work is done, not only in economics, but also in social policy, advocacy. It's always been one of the institutions I really admire. So it's just an honor to be able to, you know, speak here as a grown-up, if you will. Okay, so this is great. Also, it's good to be part of your center, Center for Global Finance. The talk today is in some sense about global finance. I'm going to be, you know, the heart of the presentation is going to be a theoretical model, sort of putting the lens on a particular aspect of a particular market. But at the end of the day, as I'll try and say, it really is about global finance. It's about, you know, commodities, big commodities, and it's about, we're going to be focusing on Africa, and it's going to have a lot to say about, I think, finance in Africa, trade in Africa, structured markets in Africa. And as we have those structured markets in Africa, the linkages to the rest of the world are, of course, obvious, okay? Just yesterday, I was talking about Ghana had some floods in the northern part of the country. Maize, which is the commodity I'll be talking about today, or one of them, was in short supply. Prices, food prices were going up. The Ghana government actually panicked a little bit. The price of eggs doubled because the maize goes to the poultry farmers make the eggs. And so that's an immediate symbol of, you know, from flood to twice doubling the price of eggs. What does the Ghana government do? It goes internationally, goes to India, goes to Argentina, looks for maize, okay? So all of these markets that we're doing here, they all have global financial implications. And I just gave you a little example about how real all of this is, okay? So you'll see a theoretical model, but I'll try and tell you that what we are doing is in the heart of global finance is extremely important, and there are going to be linkages everywhere. When the rains don't fall in Tamale in northern Ghana, it has an impact on Argentina and India. Okay, so those are the, you know, we're in a very interconnected world. So this work is joint. Today's paper is joint with Heto Pellegrina. This is the model that I'm going to present. I think I was told I have about an hour and something to talk. Yes.
Yes.
So I will go quickly through the main points. I will first tell you a bit about the context, a bit about the larger picture. Then in the middle, I will go very quickly through the theoretical model. So those of you who love search theory models, the use of search theory in finance, okay, which has become a big deal these days, you may enjoy that. I'll give a very few concluding remarks. Then I'll maybe stop a little bit early and then come back to issues as and when you have questions. Okay, so if that's all right, Victor, that's my plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so let's see if this thing works. Let's see. Okay, yes. So this is going to be a conversation about markets for agricultural outputs. Okay, and basically what I'm doing is first of all, I'm going to tell you about the context. And one of the things I feel very, very proud about is through our research work, through our theoretical work, through our work with technology, we actually got very, very close to the Ghana government. And about 3 years ago, I remember making a presentation to cabinet when I was telling the cabinet that Ghana needs something called the commodity exchange. This is a consequence of the research that we were doing. And I thought the bureaucrats were going to, you know, ask me questions, have lots of delays, etc. But because we had done so much research work, I was surprised. The ministers actually said, okay, you are this professor who's talking so much. You say you want to build a commodity exchange. Go and do it. How soon can we get it? Me with my big mouth, I said, well, if you give me the money today, we'll get the commodity exchange done in 1 year. Of course, didn't expect that they'll give me the money, but they did. So right on the spot, we got the Ghana government to give us several million US dollars. We got a team together, and exactly 1 year later, we created a commodity exchange, okay? And so this is economic theory at work. This is economics at work. And today's talk is going to be about that project, okay? So it's going to be a theoretical view of it, but I'm going to give you a bit of the context, okay? So that's where we're heading. That's what we're doing. Okay, as I said, this is joint work with Heitor Pellegrina, who is a professor at NYU, our Abu Dhabi campus. I am myself in New York, been based there, but I now have a joint appointment also with NYU Abu Dhabi. Okay, so context. Trading institutions in Africa tend to be unstructured. There tend to be a lot of costs involved in trade. And so there's a need for centralized markets, okay? Many countries have recently started in Africa their commodity exchanges. Ethiopia is one big one. Malawi has not quite a full commodity exchange, but they have what is called the warehouse receipt system. So they're sort of edging towards that. And we need theories, we need practice, we need to understand what's going on. I know there are many other countries which are thinking about it. Issouf is in the audience. I know Cote d'Ivoire is moving along that path as well. So this is going to be a study of that. In particular, what we're going to be studying today is thinking through what exactly does a commodity exchange do? How does it affect market participants, and what can we say about it? Okay, so there's going to be a theoretical model, sort of think of it as a first step theoretical model where we begin to actually get language to talk about a commodity exchange in a sort of developing country context. Okay, so that's the goal. I'm going to be introducing two types of markets. So these are two things to keep in mind, sort of to organize our thoughts. One of them, think of that as a status quo. That's today's sort of trading system. I'm going to call it a bilateral exchange market, BEM, okay? So in Africa, you're a farmer, you produce your crops, you send your crops to your farm gate, maybe at the, you stand by the roadside, you wait for a trader to come in. The trader will come to your village or to your farm, have a negotiation with you, ask you how much maize do you have, what quality is it, and most importantly, how much are you willing to sell this for, okay? The trader will then take the maize after they've agreed on a price and send it to the city, okay, or to the regional town. So that's a bilateral trading between the trader and the farmer, okay? So think of that as a status quo. This is the way these markets work in many developing countries today, okay? The opposite of that, or a different type of market, if you will, is the commodity exchange market. So I'll go through it, the CEM, I'll give you a bit more structure about it, but essentially it's a centralized market. In economics, think of this as the Voratian market, right? So there's a common price, okay? There are buyers and there's sellers, they go into the market and they trade, okay? They find a common price which will clear the market. So this is the concept I think we all think about when we think of a Voratian market. All of economics, elementary economics, graduate economics, that's the model, okay? So again, two different types of economies, bilateral exchange, the traditional status, commodity exchange, the new, the modern, okay? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Those are the two different kinds. And when we come to the modeling stage, that's what I'm going to be modeling, okay? So that's that. Let me take a water break. And Victor, if there are any questions, like especially clarifying questions, just let me know. I'm happy to take them at any time, okay? So if somebody wants to leave a question in the chat or something, I think, Victor, you are monitoring that, right?
Yes, I'm doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Okay. So let me first preview what our results are going to be, okay? And so what are we going to do? As I said, there are two markets, the bilateral trading market or the bilateral exchange market and the commodities exchange market, the traditional and the new, okay? And our goal for most of this talk is just to model it, get language, get structure, get theory, and see what happens, okay? So first of all, I'm going to argue that the bilateral trading model, the bilateral exchange model, the BEM model, has in it inefficiencies. Where do the inefficiencies come from? The farmer has to wait at the farm gate for a trader to come and for there to be a negotiation. Many times, the farmer will wait and wait and wait, and no trader comes by. Yes? Okay. Similarly, a trader may go into a community looking for farmers. Okay. The trader may look, and never find a farmer with the goods at the price that they want. Okay. And so they are unmatched trades. Okay. It's possible that there's a farmer somewhere in some village with some commodity, right? Is willing to sell at some price, and there's a trader who unfortunately is going to a different community, okay, and doesn't see this one community here. That's the problem with bilateral trading. If you ask farmers what are their fears, among many fears are that they will produce all these crops and find nobody to purchase them, okay? In the literature, definitely if you go into the international organizations, you hear the term post-harvest losses a lot, okay? And that usually refers to the situation where, just as I said, a farmer will produce a lot of a commodity and nobody comes to pick it up. And so it's been harvested, but after the harvest, it sits and rots on the farm because nobody comes there to pick it up. And estimates of that range from 20% to 60%, okay, in some cases. So these are big numbers. It's something which farmers really worry about. Not only is it a big number as in terms of how we measure it, there could also be latent post-harvest losses, meaning farmers may decide not to produce because they're scared of those losses. And so if those losses weren't there, output would have increased. So in some sense, you need to measure those implicit losses when you're doing the calculation. In any event, one of the big issues with bilateral exchanges is this post-harvest losses, okay? So that's point number one. Point number two, which is peculiar to a search model, and I'll come to that later on, which may not be fully understood, is this subtlety where in an equilibrium, it's possible that traders will go into a community. Traders have limited capacity to buy off of the farmers, and there may be a match between a trader and a farmer, but the trader will say, you know, your costs are too high. If I take your goods, I would be making a profit, but it's much better for me, instead of trading with you, to trade with somebody else who has a lower cost, yes? And since there are so few traders around in that particular village at that particular time, this trader with a higher cost, for which there's value, may not get a trade because of the existence of somebody with a lower cost, okay? And so this is another inefficiency. It's a little bit more subtle. It happens in equilibrium, but when you're looking at the costs associated with having the bilateral exchange model, you have to include that, okay? So in our model, that's going to be something that we'll be able to see very, very clearly because we've written a model, and you may not have seen it if you hadn't put that model there, okay? So that's the second thing we're going to show in our work. The third thing, suppose now you bring in the modern market, right? The commodity exchange market. You would think that once this market is there, it's going to drive out completely the old market, yes? And so there's nothing you have to worry about. Early on, when Ethiopia started its commodity exchange, it started it with grains, maize, sesame, and there they have a lot of different kinds of beans. After the first year, they realized that the volumes were very, very low, yes? And so you would think that once you bring in this modern, super efficient exchange, everybody in the traditional sector should just be singing praises. Hallelujah, it's great to have the commodity exchange. Everybody should flock there. And you would think that the existing BEM will just collapse, okay? So in Ethiopia, we found out, those who are watching, that was not the case, okay? And in fact, there's a fear that the exchange may not have succeeded if they hadn't brought in the big cash crop of Ethiopia, which is coffee, okay? So once they brought in coffee, the exchange took off. And maybe if they stayed with grains, nothing would have happened. As you all know, during those years, Ethiopia had a strong man, Meles Zenawi, who essentially commanded all farmers in those crops, you have to do it through the exchange, okay? And so he sort of tried to force the collapse of the BEM. He was a very developed, he was a, believed in the development state and the role of the government in creating and enforcing market institutions. But even in Ethiopia, even with Meles, on the fringes, you could see people trying to go outside of this commodity exchange. So you ask yourself, if this commodity exchange is so good, why would some people want to be outside of it, right? It sort of makes no sense. We create a model which says that so long as you allow both to exist, both will exist, okay? And you, again, this is something you only see once you've written down the model. If it's just conversational, if you're just saying, I think this, I think that, you'll believe that the CEM will destroy the BEM, okay? So this is another advantage in writing a formal model. You write the model, you say, I understand. Now I know what's going on, okay? So that's going to be another advantage of our theoretical setup, okay? And the reason why you have both is that there are two parts of it. One is commodity exchanges are, they're expensive, okay? There are costs in running these things. These costs are in the modern sector. Traditional sector, the relative costs of production there tend to be low. And so the costs that you have in the modern sector are high relative to the cost there. To say it simply, it's expensive to run a commodity exchange, and the commodity exchange is going to impose a tax for every bag that is traded in the exchange, okay? So that's what we're going to get there. Those of you who remember the work of Arthur Lewis on structural transformation of economies, on economic growth, it's a similar thing he was saying there. So if you recall, in his work, you had this large agricultural sector with low productivity and low relative wages, yes? And then you had this industrial sector with very, very high productivity and high wages, yes? And so people were coming from the poorer traditional sectors into the higher sector, and both of them coexisted, okay? And so in Lewis's model, you had the dual economy, okay? And so this is something that he wrote when he was writing in, I think it was Manchester. Maybe he spent some time in Birmingham as well, Victor. So it was in your neck of the woods there. But that's when he was writing all of his great theories on economic development. And as you all know, Arthur Lewis became a advisor to President Nkrumah of Ghana, okay, in the late 50s, early 60s. And so, so it just feels good that in our theoretical model, we're getting results similar to what Arthur Lewis got. So we're getting a dual economy in our model, okay? And so that it just feels good in his memory, okay? All right, our work touches on a number of literatures. First of all, as I just said, the dual economy literature, structural adjustments literature. And so the original Lewis paper and Doug Golan has a very good survey of the literature in 2014 with a large number of papers. It's going to be a search model, and so we touch on a large literature on search, literature that talks about bilateral to centralized trade, everything from the original Rubinstein bargaining models. Okay, so we're going to have flavors of that here, and of course Mortensen, Pissariadis, and search models and markets there. And in finance, as many of you know, there's the work by Duffy et al., Ricardo Lagos et al. On broker-dealers models, right? And so this is for equity. Somebody has some information and is searching for the best person to give their trade to, okay? And so similar kinds of things, you ask yourself, is this going to be a model where there are brokers and, a model where people with equity and people who want to buy and those who want to sell meet bilaterally? Or do you have a market maker in the middle that is intermediating these trades, okay? So there's a whole literature out there talking about using search models to explain equity markets, equity exchanges, existence of brokers, existence of market makers. And so our work relates to that. And then, of course, more in the lines of the development literature, we've got all of these trade models. So Donaldson, Antras Costino, and others, a lot of these trade models have similar things. And then there's the literature in development on giving price information to farmers, okay, and the effect of that. And so we also relate to that. So in some sense, these are the different literatures that our work relates to. All right. So this is where I pause. Victor, any questions on the chats? Am I clear?
So far. No, go ahead, please. So far, no questions.
So far, no. Okay. So what I'll do next is I'll show you a few slides on the bilateral exchange model, just to give you a little bit of a feel for that. I'll give you the BEM. Those of you who may not remember or don't know Africa, I'll give you a few pictures just to either remind you of it, or those of you who've been on the lockdown and haven't been to Africa for a while, just bring back memories, if you will. Okay, and so that will be the BEM. I will then go to the CEM, the commodity exchange model, tell you about that structure, let you know how it works. Then after I've introduced the BEM and the CEM, I'll give you a formal model. I'll show you what the model looks like. I'll put in all the parameters of the model, and then tell you our results again, okay? All right, so that's how I intend to proceed. So let's go. So first, the BEM. So again, in many African nations, population density very low. Farmers are spread out across the country, live in villages. Many of them villages their fathers, grandfathers have lived in for years, generations, hundreds of years, okay? So they're sort of, that's where they are. It's very hard to get into many of these villages, okay? So the road network in many African countries, you've got the main trunk roads, which go from the major cities to the ports, and there may be one or two big cities in the country, and that's it for the road network, okay? So many communities, there are dirt roads which go into those communities. So just imagine if you're a trader, you go into a city on a major road, then you have to make a major decision which of these side roads to take. Each one takes maybe a couple of hours and a lot of money to get to, okay? Once you've chosen one of them, you're gonna have to look for a farmer. And these pictures here are some of the pictures of these farmers. On the left here is actually a shed where somebody keeps their maize. So they store their maize there in a village, okay? So just, again, think of a very remote village. You gotta go on the main road to a town, get off on the town, and maybe take another road through dirt, 2 hours, 3 hours to get to this little place here for the maize, okay? So keep that in your mind as we're thinking of the model here, all right? There are traders. The traders go into these communities to meet with the farmers, pick up their goods, bring it back to another town to sell, okay? So that's the other part of the market and the bilateral trading. Here are some more pictures. And so on the left, top left, you see farmers, they're in the back there. They have their maize farms. They put them in the sacks, put them on their heads, bring them to the farm gate, okay? The trader would be, so now we're talking about top right now. The trader would have hired a truck, okay? Taken the maize, put it on the truck after they finish negotiation with the farmer, okay? And so top right is what you see there. And then bottom two are just two pictures of selling some of the maize at in a town close by, okay? And on the bottom right, that's yam. Yam is another big crop. Yam is not traded on the commodity exchange because it's hard to make it uniform. It's hard to grade it, okay? Whereas maize, soya, sesame, sorghum are all, and rice are all commodities which, you know, it's easy to grade, easy to make uniform. So those are on the commodity exchange. All right. These are just some more pictures. We did a baseline survey. So I'm just going to give you some statistics here. This one, if you're outside Ghana, may not be relevant to you, but it's just showing you the different regions where, in this case, maize is grown, or where our farming households come from. One thing you may want to be interested in, there's a wide variety of languages among the farmers that we surveyed all across the country. Another interesting thing you may want, these are the education levels of the households. We did a randomized baseline survey. So the farmers that we are thinking about, we did the surveys, asked them for their education levels. And as you can see, a large percentage of them have zero education, okay? Many of them have primary school, a few have middle school level, and higher is much fewer. So again, this is just to give you a sense of who are these farmers who are producing the crops, okay? And so you should not be thinking about the United States, where there's a farmer who may be, for example, a retired lawyer and is doing farming part-time, okay? And don't think of a big, large company which has got large, huge tracts of making corn in the Midwest of the United States. This is a different market. I just want to emphasize that, okay? These are the kinds of crops that are grown: cashew nuts, cassava, cocoa, groundnuts, etc. The crops that are traded on the commodity exchange are rice, maize. You don't see here soya and sorghum. Those are the main crops. My understanding from Issouf is that Cote d'Ivoire is thinking a lot about cashew. They're the biggest producer of that. And Ghana is also thinking about cashew, but it's not yet on the commodity exchange, okay? So this is just a sense of the farmers, who they are, what they produce. A lot of land disputes there. Here is just a sense of the farmers. When we surveyed them, what are the kinds of issues you face? Bad roads, high cost of labor, high cost of transportation, high input costs, inconsistent weather. So this is just to give you, again, I'm just giving you a sense of who these farmers are, what we're trying to model, okay? And so I'm giving you the information through surveys that we did. I think, was it 1,200 and something farmers, okay? These are the communities in Ghana that we were interested in. A side project, which I'm not going to be talking about today, but probably I should mention it here, with Chris Udry at Northwestern, Lauren Berquist at Michigan, and Lorenzo Casaburi at University of Zurich. We're running a randomized control trial across Ghana, okay? These are the different communities we're looking at. Red are our control communities, green are our treatment communities, and essentially the green communities, we're going to help them, we're going to treat them with priority access to the commodity exchange, okay? and compare it to the control to see in an experiment what is the effect of giving the commodity exchange. Okay, so that's an ongoing project. In case somebody asks about that, that's what we're doing, but that will not be the focus of today's talk. Okay, but just wanted you to know that that's what we're doing. All right. Okay, so again, I've just gone through some pretty pictures. I've told you a little bit about what the BEM, the bilateral exchange model is. It's the traditional model. And again, to repeat, you got farmers, they produce farmers in their villages, carried it on their heads, put it to their farm gate. Traders come in, negotiate with them. If the trader accepts the price offered by the farmer or vice versa, there's a trade. The trader will then take the commodity, put it on a car, you saw that picture there, and then send it off to the main market for sale. Okay, so it could be in the regional headquarters or the capital. That's where the traders sell it. So that's the BEM model. Okay, what I'm going to do now is to tell you the commodity exchange model. As I said before, I'm really happy about this. If you're working in economic theory, you sometimes think that everything you do is just mathematics and existence theorems, and you have no impact in the world. So one of the great things is that we're able to lobby the Ghana government, and this is a practical thing. I don't think we would have had the commodity exchange model if we hadn't lobbied the government, and that lobbying was because of the earlier theoretical work and analysis that we had done in Ghana. So that it just feels good, okay? It's not only equations and algebra and existence theorems, but there's actually something on the ground. So this is the commodity exchange model, commodity exchange market. This is a picture of the president of Ghana a year after the meeting we had with him in cabinet. And he's ringing the opening bell of the Ghana Commodity Exchange. Okay, so this is the room. There is the floor where all the brokers are. It's COVID now, and they've gone electronic, so the brokers don't sit there anymore. But that's where the room is, and that's where the bell is in Ghana. Okay, the ticker tape on the top there is showing the prices of the different commodities that are traded. Okay. So this is where some of the people from the exchange are going into the communities to tell them about the commodity exchange and get them to send their goods to the commodity exchange. And if you look on the right, you will see a weighing scale. Okay, so each of the bags has to be 50 kg, 50 kilograms. Okay, those are the standard weights. In the BEM, there's actually no measurements. Okay, and if you talk to the farmers, they're really upset with the traders who come in and they put their hands like this, meaning that when the traders come, there's a bowl, right? And the traders will put their hands there and overfill the bowl and use their hands as like part of the bowl, so that it's like a super packed bowl, and they hate it. And if I may be allowed to say it, it's really cute because it goes against all the stereotypes. The farmers tend to be men, and the men are complaining about the traders, who in Ghana tend to be women. Okay, and so the women are exploiting the men. I just love that story. Okay, so that's what's going on there. But anyway, the commodity exchange, one of the advantages of commodity exchange is that everything is weighed. Okay, you have to take the moisture content. Okay, so it has to be 13%, 12% moisture content. So that yellow thing, they take a sample, they put it on the top, and then they read the percentage moisture. If there's too much moisture in it, they send it back. It doesn't qualify. The grains are graded. Okay, so if it's maize, there's maize grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. And the grading is a function of moisture content. So if it's 12%, it could be grade 1. If it's 13%, you have to make it grade 2. Okay, then you look at whether it has impediments, whether it's perfectly round. So there's a whole scheme where you grade the commodity. Okay, so that's what you do. And now this is a warehouse. Okay, and so the farmers, they'll bring their maize here. It's graded, and then it's weighed. Okay, it's weighed again. All right, and they have to make sure that it's 50 kg. And then after it's weighed, you get a GRN. A GRN is a grains receipt note. Okay, it's a piece of paper. Okay, saying that you have this amount of maize at this particular warehouse. Okay. After they've done that, the same sheet of paper, they write it in a different way in a legal form, and it becomes a warehouse receipt. The only difference between the two of them is that the warehouse receipt is respected by the government as a financial instrument, which can therefore be traded, and therefore you can get loans based on it. Okay, so it's all part of Ghana law. Okay, so that's what happens at the commodity exchange. So again, just to tell you a bit more, so again, this is at the bottom here, you see some pictures. The first picture on the left, you're still at the warehouse where they have bagged the maize. Middle picture is the trading floor. So these are a bunch of brokers with their computers. And on the right, of course, is the president, again, a repeat of the opening bell in the same place. All right. So the trading pit takes place in Accra or electronically. Everything has moved electronic now. What do they trade? They trade in a contract. Okay. What is a contract? A contract is one of these warehouse receipts, right? And so the warehouse receipt specifies the quantity, how much maize and that number of bags. It specifies the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and it specifies the warehouse, right? Okay. And so you could be trading at a particular time a commodity whose symbol is WM1TA. Okay. So what is WM1TA? WM stands for white maize. So Ghana has two types of maize, white maize and yellow maize. 1 stands for the grade 1. Maize has grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. Grade 1 is used by the flour mills for food. Grade 4 is used by the poultry farmers, okay, for the chicken, all right? And TA stands for the warehouse in Tamale, which is a regional capital in the north of the country. So at a particular date, at a particular time, Tuesdays, 10 o'clock, they'll be trading in the contract WM1TA, okay? So that's the contract that is being traded, okay? The key thing to note is that the commodity exchange has a lot of fees, okay? So if you're working on the BEM and you're a farmer, all you need to do, send your maize to the roadside, wait for the farmer for the trader to come in and negotiate. Victor, I see your hand just went up momentarily.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
If you send your goods to the commodity exchange, there are a number of fees. If the maize is not clean enough, you got to clean it. If it's not dry enough, you've got to dry it. The commodity exchange will charge you a handling fee, a processing fee, okay? If you're a farmer, you can't just send your maize to the warehouse, right? You have to get a broker to sell the maize on the floor on your behalf. The broker will charge you a fee. If the broker is not able to sell the maize for a month because you don't have a good price, you have a warehouse storage fee, okay? So you've got a whole number of fees that you have to pay if you're going into the commodity exchange system, okay? All right? And it turns out that those fees for some people could be about 10% of the value of the maize, sometimes 15%. If you're unlucky and you have to do drying, cleaning, and fumigation, those optional fees may make the total of the fees 40% of the value. Yes? Okay. So it's important to realize that, because that will drive the dual economy result. Okay. All right. So that's the institutional context of the commodity exchange. At this time, all trading is a spot market. There are no futures trading going on. Okay. Here is a picture, sort of like diagrammatically, an explanation of the commodity exchange. So imagine there are three brokers. I'll call them for simplicity broker 1, 2, and 3. They're in the middle, right? They're at the heart of things, okay? In practice, today there may be something like, I don't know, 40 brokers, of which about 15 are really active, okay? It's a relatively small market at this particular time. But here in the diagram, I just put 3 brokers there. And you take at the very top broker 3. So there are 2 lines. Broker 3 has work with farmer 7 and farmer 8. That's what you see on the top left, right? And then, so that's on the sell side. So these are farmers. They've sent their maize to the warehouse, collected the warehouse receipt, given it to the broker, and told the broker, please sell this on my behalf. Yeah? That same broker on the other side, the buy side of the market, has a school feeding program. So Ghana has schools which provides food for farmers, okay? And so, sorry, they have schools that provide food for students, okay? And those students, they need to eat. Ghana government provides them food. And so there are people who supply to those schools. And so they need to buy, okay? And so they need a broker. And so that same broker is on the buy side, okay, dealing with school number 4. Also, flour mills, they need the maize to make flour, bread, etc. So they also need to buy. And I didn't put it in here, but there could have been some poultry farmers. So the poultry farmers need maize, they need soya for the chickens to feed, okay? So that's what broker 3 does. Brokers cannot deal on both sides of the market. So if they get farmer 7 and farmer 8, they're dealing on the sell side with them. They can't trade those things directly to school 4 and school mill 4, right? They have to trade with another broker, okay? So you can't do self-dealing. That's the way it works. All right, so that's a bit of a structure of the commodity exchange, okay? Farmers on one side, each farmer needs to get a broker, and so that's the sell side of the market. Then you've got on the other side, the buy side, okay? So schools, flour mills, poultry farmers, they too need a broker. And the different brokers trade with each other on the commodity exchange floor, okay? So that's the way it works. And so, excellent. So far what I've done for you is I've told you in words what is the BEM. I've told you also what is the CEM, yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to model everything, all right? So again, I'll ask any questions, Victor, for me on the chat. So
not yet, no. Please go ahead. No, not yet.
It's hard to say when everybody is quiet without making sense, or you know, whether I'm starting to speak Ashanti, my native tongue, and nobody understands anything. All right, I see a hand up.
There is a question. There is a hand up, okay, from Bob.
Yes,
Bob,
hi.
please unmute and go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Am I off mute? Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I off mute? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Bob.
Yeah, a question. If I just pause, if you will. In both models, I'm curious. You know, if you look at many other markets, including, say, in Kenya with the KTDA, the Kenya Tea Development Authority, and others, one component that brokers used to provide, and sometimes even groups like KTDA created a subsidiary to provide, is financing to the farmers.
Yep.
Because they often become a hostage to the broker because they need the inputs, finance, seed, and fertilizer. I work with a group also kind of advising called the 1 Acre Fund in East Africa. And you know, there's amazing work in micro-lending, using M-Pesa for payments, but it's basically working with the smallest farmers. And in the past, many of them lost a lot of the value because their ability to access financing was so limited.
Yeah.
It may come up, but is that a component or consideration in Ghana as well?
Yeah, so the whole finance piece is so complicated and so interesting. Okay, it drives so much. So here are just a few sort of like bullet points to sort of get at what you're driving at. So number one, the farmers themselves, many farmers are scared to go for loans. Okay, they're scared because if they get the loans and their crops fail, they'll feel like they're running away from the legal system. So many farmers are scared to get loans. So that's, call it bullet point one. Okay. Bullet point two: the exchange have created what are called warehouse receipts. The warehouse receipt system, financing system, it's actually supported by the IFC, World Bank IFC. Okay. And so what they do there is they have a mechanism where if you have a warehouse receipt showing that you've deposited maize at the warehouse, you can go to a bank with that receipt and get a fraction of that as a loan. That's a good thing, but only for people who have already finished producing. Okay, it's not an input loan. All right, so that's, call it a second bullet point. Third bullet point: the traders themselves, many of the traders, the way in which they hook the farmers is to give them loans when they're planting. Okay. So it's kind of like all of us. If somebody gives me a job to do and it's a years down the road, I say, oh, no problem, I can do this. Okay. Hopefully there are no editors here, but it's like refereeing. If somebody says referee a paper and I give you 2 months, sure, 2 months is so far in the future, no problem, I'm willing to do it. So the farmers getting the same thing. They take this loan at exorbitant rates, and then the 2 months comes down, they're about to harvest, and they realize, oh my gosh, all my money is going to the person who gave me the loans at the first time. So you got that problem as well. So that's a third bullet point there. So I could go on and on and on about the bullet points. All I'm trying to say is you're dead right. All these financial things, complicated, interesting. We need to get to the bottom of that if we're going to transform the agricultural sector. So
there's some good models worth looking at where I think it's working well.
Yeah.
And we should some other point discuss it. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, but I'll email you and maybe you can give me some references on that. Okay. But it's something which I'm very interested in and it's so critical. Okay. All right. Shall I keep going, Victor?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah. Great.
Okay. So what I've done for you right now so far is I've explained in words everything. I've given you the institutional structure, right? So we know what in our minds what the structure is. So next, I'm going to build you a model, and I know it's very hard listening to a model on Zoom. So what I'll do is I'm going to give you exactly 2 slides of math. Okay. So I'm just going to pause there and talk you through the model. It's essentially a standard Mortensen, Pissariadis search theory model. Okay. It's similar to the kind of work you'll see with Ricardo Lagos. There's bargaining in there, Nash bargaining. We take out of Rubinstein. Okay. And so it's the easiest, simplest search model we can produce, which delivers results. Okay. So just give me indulge me. There'll be exactly 2 slides. The first slide, I'm going to use notation to tell you again what the model is. And then the next slide, I'm going to give you the Bellman equations. Again, there'll be a lot of notation, but it should be very simple. Then after that, I'll come back and with those 2 slides, tell you essentially the results, okay? And talk through the results. There's a paper. Anybody who wants to read the paper, I think I circulated the paper, Victor, I gave it to.
Yes,
yes
you did. Thanks. Yeah.
So there's a paper out there with all the details, okay? All right. So I'm constructing a model. Let me just talk you through the model using the notation here, okay? So the first thing we think of farmers being indexed by some parameter C, okay? So there's some farmers who it's easy for them to produce, okay? maybe they're very, very close to a very good road, okay? And so those are the low C people. There are also some very high C people. So these are people who may be in a village, and to get to the maze, they have to climb a high hill and maybe cross a river, okay? And again, I've been in some of these communities, so I know that, I don't mean to frighten you guys, but some of these rivers have actually crocodiles in them, and people have to traverse them. I know it sounds funny, but I actually, that's the image in my mind. So think of those places as high C people, okay? And so there are different types of farmers with different costs. Some farmers can produce easily, some can produce hard, okay? So C is your type. It shows you how efficient you are on your farm, okay? The trader will go to a particular farmer, and then the farmer and the trader will negotiate a price. The price will, of course, be determined by P of by that C, right? And so you can imagine people with high C's may have a different price from people with low C's, okay? And so P of C, the second line there, is just the negotiated price as a function of C. The trader, the farmer, they negotiate a price in the BEM, right? That's what we're modeling here. And the final price is P of C. There's a final price. So when the trader agrees to pick up the maize and goes to the big city, so Ghana's big city is called Accra. So I'm calling it the Accra price. So that's capital P, yeah? Okay. So let's suppose, so the first three things here, let's suppose that the costs, other than C, there are no other costs of the farmer. Then after they've negotiated a price P of C, what does the farmer get? The farmer gets P of C minus C, right? What does the trader get? Trader gets the Accra price minus what the trader had to pay to the farmer. So it's cap P minus P of C, right? So those are the first three things. This is a dynamic model. And so in each period, you discount, you play the game each period the same way. You discount payoffs by a factor delta, okay? And as it's a search models, imagine the trader goes to the village, matches up with a farmer. So you've got a farmer-trader pair. They stay together forever, but every now and then, and this is the famous Poisson arrival rate if it's continuous time, with some probability beta, their match is destroyed, okay? One of them passes away. One of them doesn't like the person. Somebody leaves the industry. So for some exogenous reason, with probability beta, the match between the trader and the farmer is broken, right? Trader needs to find this farmer, okay? So the trader, remember, has to pick which of these narrow roads to go down. So let the search cost of the trader be K. At the end, let's suppose that when the trader is going, the trader believes that there's a probability mu T, mu of the trader to find a farmer. Similarly, the farmer who goes to the roadside, there's a probability mu of F that they will find the other side of the market, right? Okay, so when you're at the farm gate, everything is random. Will I find a trader? Will I not find a trader if I'm a farmer? That probability is mu of farmer. Trader also has a probability. I'm a trader. I'm going into a community. Will I find a farmer? Will I not find a farmer? That probability is mu T, yes? All right. Then finally, in determining the price, we use what is called Nash bargaining. So those of you in the search literature, so what are the gains from trade? Cap P is the Accra price. C is the cost, yes? And so the gains are the Accra price minus the cost, yes? That's the gains from trade. So this P of C, which is the negotiated price, has to be in between there. And we just say that they split it phi 1 minus phi. So if phi is equal to a half, P of C, if it was a static model, will be 50-50 on those gains. You all with me so far? So let me pause here if there are questions. So this is, I think, a standard search model, okay? And so we're modeling the BEM, and essentially I'm saying there's an accrual price, there's a cost for the farmer, fee. If it's a half, we split the gains 50-50, we match, we live forever, yes? Each period we discount each utility by delta, and there's a probability beta, our match will be broken, okay? Farmer's cost is C, trader's search cost is K, and that's the model. All right, let me pause here. Any questions? Okay, so this is our standard search model. And this is the last complicated equation here, okay? And so these are just our Bellman equations, okay? So let me just talk you through it in just a minute. And again, this is standard search theory. FM means a farmer who is matched, okay? So look at the first equation, a farmer F who is matched M, whose type is C. What does the farmer get? Well, the farmer gets a price P of C from the trader, yes? That's the negotiated price. It subtracts its own cost C, yes? Then in the next period, everything is discounted, yes? By delta. So this delta is the future. What does the farmer get in the future? Well, with probability beta, everything gets broken, right? And so he becomes unmatched. With probability 1 minus beta, you keep your person, you continue being matched, and you get V of farmer being matched again, yes? So that's what the first equation says, right? Just a dynamic equation. Second equation, a trader who's matched. What does a trader who's matched do? It gets the accrual price cap P minus whatever you negotiated. So within that period, you get cap P, accrual price, minus negotiated price that you have to give to the farmer, yes? Plus discounted in the future. With probability 1 minus beta, you stay matched and you get your trader matched again. And with probability beta, you're a trader who's unmatched, yes? So that's essentially what it is. You may choose not to go out at all, in which case you just get VT. You may decide to stay unmatched, okay? Anyway, so that's what that is. And you have similar things for farmers unmatched, traders unmatched. This equation here at the bottom is just the Nash bargaining, right? So this 1 minus eta over eta is like phi, yeah? So my gain, if it was a static model, I have a crop price, I have C, and we just share it 50-50. This is a dynamic model, so I have my dynamics if I'm matched, dynamics if I'm unmatched, so my gain is the difference, your gain is the difference, and we have to split it 50-50, or make it equal shares if it's, you know, so this last equation, Nash bargaining, is just the same thing for a dynamic model, okay? All right, so that's it, that's the model, okay? Victor, I'm going to pause here and then talk through the results. Any questions for me?
No, you're right here. No questions in the comments chat. Okay. I think there is one question going up. Yes, Anosi.
So I think Anosi is still on mute.
Anosi,
yeah,
please unmute. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's a very interesting model. I just have a quick question. If I, just from my own understanding of commodities trading a little bit, there's a problem of standardization of quality of produce. I don't know how your model sort of takes that into account. So, you know, yeah, people produce maize, or let's say tomatoes, but they need to be produced to a certain standard for, you know, for it to be for big traders to buy. And from my little understanding, that's one of the problems, particularly in African countries, the quality of produce.
Yeah. So let me provide two answers to that. So first of all, this paper here is not going to be a paper about quality, okay? So in the model, there are no issues of quality here at all, okay? So that's, I'm hoping to write that paper, okay? Empirically, what we see in the field is actually interesting. So on the buyer side, a lot of buyers, the big flour mills, are all complaining that farmers are not producing for them grain of the appropriate quality, okay? Farmers, in turn, are actually, in my opinion, don't really take into account differences in quality, okay? So they're not focused on it. So what do I think is going on, right? So there should be a price gradient, meaning farmers should understand that if they produce better quality maize, they will get better quality, better price for their maize. If they knew that gradient, they would then start producing the better quality grain. In Ethiopia, when the commodity exchange started, this was for coffee, many Ethiopian coffee farmers didn't understand this price gradient. So they just go there and they produce coffee. The coffee they produced last year, they do it the same time this year. They didn't know that grade. After the exchange came in and people began to see that, you know, if I do Sidama grade 1, I get this much more than my current Sidama, which is grade 3. And so in the next season, after they've seen that difference, okay, they start doing things to get better grade. So I'm agreeing with you, A, that it's a big problem, but I'm telling you that as I look at it in the field, the farmers don't know that price gradient, and therefore they're not responding to it. In the Ghana context, southern Ghana, the issue with maize is something called aflatoxins, okay? It's like a fungus. If the place is very moist, the fungus grows on the maize, okay? And so aflatoxins are slightly poisonous for human beings, all right? And so that's the quality issue with maize anyway in southern Ghana, okay? In northern Ghana, it's relatively dry, so they don't have the aflatoxin problem. In the south, there are things they could have done to mitigate against aflatoxins, but for many farmers, it's actually not on their minds. They ship their maize to the warehouse, it gets graded, they see it's a grade 3, and then they're surprised. Then we have to teach them what aflatoxins are, how to test it, etc. Okay, so that's my sort of, those are my answers to your question. And you're 100% right. Quality is very, very important. It's not in the theoretical paper. We know about it in the field, and that's the topic of the next paper, okay? Good.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let me tell you, give you a diagram. And again, all of this is in a model. And this diagram is going to sort of begin to tell you what we are learning from the model, okay? So first of all, look only at the BEM model. The horizontal line at 40 is the Accra price. So imagine that the Accra price for a 50 kg bag of maize is 40, okay? The 45-degree line, the dotted line, is the line which says at the bottom is a farmer with a particular C. So higher is C, higher is the line, right? So that's a 45-degree line, yes? Okay, so that's the dotted line. It's the cost of the farmer, right? So on the horizontal axis is the cost of the farmer, vertical axis is the price, okay? And so 40 is the price in Accra, 45 degrees is the index or cost of the farmer. So the difference between 40 and that dotted line, those are the gains from trade, yes? Okay, and so you do dynamics, the Bellman equations. The blue line is the price, okay? So that's the negotiated price between the trader and the farmer, yes? Accra price is horizontal at 40. The minimum the farmer will accept is their cost, which is C, which is the 45-degree line. Gains from trade is the difference. Blue is the negotiated price. So the gains to the farmer is the price minus the C, so that's A, right? And the gains to the trader, they get the Accra price minus the blue, which is what they pay to the farmer, yes? And so A are the gains from trade for the farmer, B gains from trade for the trader, yes? At the very corner here, you see the area, the triangle, that's G, yes? So in our search model, what happens? Let's suppose a trader goes to a particular village and then sees a farmer whose cost is less than 40, but very close to 40, yeah? And so in principle, that trader could trade with that farmer and make a profit, yes? So these are valuable farmers. However, the way we've modeled things, once you're with that farmer, okay, you could stay with that farmer, or you could say, I'm not going to waste my time with you. Instead of spending a day or two taking your maize, going to the main town, selling it, waiting for the seller to bring me the money, because as you all know, these traders, they don't get paid immediately, okay? So it takes a lot of time to execute that transaction, okay? So then the trader may say, you know, I like you, I could have made some money from you, but you know, it's not worth my while, okay? It's gonna take me a long time to sell your maize. I don't wanna deal with you. Instead, I wanna look around at some other villages to see if I can find some farmers with a lower C, yes? And so if you look on that graph, between the point 35 and 40 are all the farmers whose costs are so high that the trader says strategically, even though there are some benefits from trading from you, I'm not going to trade with you. I'd rather search the field again. Okay, so we call that strategic rejection. And that area G is a dead weight loss because of that strategic rejection. Okay, all right, so it's something bad that just comes from the search mechanism. All right, okay, so that's something we learned that we wouldn't have known if we hadn't gone into the theory. Okay, all right, so that's the BEM model. And Victor, am I still doing okay on time? Okay, you're on mute, but that's okay.
Yes, you're okay for time, yeah.
All right, okay. So so that's a BEM model. So that's a model of how the BEM works. Is a search theoretic model of the BEM, okay? And we've learned something from that, okay? Now I tell you the CEM model, okay? So at the commodity exchange, what happens? Well, if you go to the commodity exchange, you're essentially going to get the price P, the Accra price, minus whatever taxes the commodity exchange is going to produce, right? Is going to incur, right? And as I said, those taxes could be high. So if you go to the commodities exchange, you'll get P times 1 minus tau, okay? So P times 1, P is the Accra price, 1 minus tau is how much you have left after the tax tau, right? Okay? And of course, for you as a farmer with your type C, you subtract your C to get your net profit, yes? So it's P times 1 minus tau minus your cost. You get that every period. Discount factor is delta, so it's delta over 1 minus delta. You just summed it all up. That's all we've done there, okay? So it's fairly straightforward what happens in the CEM, okay? All right, so now in this graph here, what we've done is we've drawn two graphs, okay? So on the horizontal axis, these are the farmers of their different cost parameters C, yes? Okay. The yellow is if this farmer sends their commodities to the CEM, commodity exchange, the yellow shows how much money they'll get out of it, okay? If they send their commodities to the BEM, the red shows how much they'll get, yes? A simple argument shows that the yellow is always steeper than the red, right? And how you see that is if you increase C by 1 unit, yeah, and you're in the commodity exchange market, every 1 unit of C is 1 unit of profit loss, right? Okay, modulo the discounting. In the BEM, however, you only get a trade with a fractional probability, yes? So if you increase your C, you're reducing your profits, but not by the full amount, okay? Because you only lose it if you get a trade, and you only get a trade with some probability, right? Okay, so that curve is always going to be flatter than the CEM curve, right? Okay, so the CEM is yellow and it's steep, BEM is red and it's flat. And so one implication of that is that if you're looking at the people who are going to be in the CEM versus the BEM, people with low types, low Cs, will go into the CEM. Those with high types will go into the BEM. Yes? Okay. So that's another conclusion that we'll get from our model. And this is also slightly counterintuitive, right? Because if you think about it, most people that we mention our papers to will say, hey, you know, if you've got different types of people, it has to be the high cost people who go into the commodity exchange. You would think that the commodity exchange is going to help those people with very, very high, the inefficient ones are the ones who are going to want to run to this efficient mechanism, right? But you got to be a little bit careful because people are choosing one versus the other, and the marginals are different, okay? So this is another sort of thing that you would see if you write the model that you wouldn't expect if you hadn't put a model down, okay? And indeed, when we go into the field, what we've seen in the commodity in Ghana, what we sort of saw in Ethiopia, those people who are close to the roads and therefore have low C are the ones who very easily go into the commodity exchange. They can pay the fees of the commodity exchange, okay? Those people with high Cs, the people in the villages, their margins are low to begin with. And so if you tell them on top of that, pay the commodity exchange fee, they'll be complaining. You understand? So it's something like that that's working. Not quite, but I hopefully this diagram will explain. So again, counterintuitive. Many times when I speak to development economists about that, they don't believe what I've written here, okay? But once you put down the graph, it becomes obvious, okay? So again, what we found in the field and what our theory tells us that is that the people who would go into the commodity exchange are the high types, the inefficient people, the low types. The efficient people will go into the commodity exchange. Inefficient people could stay in the BEM. And I see Isuf's hand up.
No, I just want a clarification. I mean, because from your graph and what is writing down, looks like if you have a low C, then you go to a BM. But your explanation seems to say that it's the contrary. Is that?
Yeah. So yellow is a CEM. I don't know if you can. Maybe there's a problem there. But yellow is a CEM, right?
Okay. Okay. Because it's right now. You see, the third line is right and is the cutoff below which farmer chose to sell to a BM, right? That's a before.
So that's a typo. The
Okay,
word is a
okay.
typo. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
right.
my
And
apologies.
something I mean also, I mean, because I mean, I see, I mean, the cost, but I think, I mean, probably if you add in terms of quantity also, because probably I'm sure that the C has a quantity and the marginal cost also, I mean, inside here. But if you had a model where actually you could have the quantity and also the marginal cost, actually, probably that will make a difference. Because I mean, my guess will be that basically to go to a change, most of the time you need quantity, right? Also.
So let me attempt to answer this in two ways, okay? So the first thing is, as regards the model, the way we are modeling it is, we're assuming that farmers have a fixed amount of land, okay? So we're not looking at the sort of like the production margin, right? So you have a fixed amount of land, and that fixed amount of land, all of that land has a common C, right? So your land is a particular place, so you have a common C. Okay, so you have to decide at the end of the season, you have all of your maize. Where are you going to send it? Are you going to send it into the city? Are you going to send it into the CEM? Or are you going to wait for a trader? Okay. All right. So that's the first response. The first response is in the model, in the and our perception of reality is that at least in the short term, output is fixed. Okay. So that's the first response. Now, the second response, something you could be saying is there is a minimum amount of maize that you need to have to go into the exchange. So we have these 50 kg bags, right? Okay, and you need 1 metric ton, 20 of those bags before you be allowed into the commodity exchange. Okay, all right. So you need 20 of those bags to go into the commodity exchange. The price of 1 metric ton, the 20 bags, is 1,200 Ghana cedis, and so that's about, think of it, about 230 US dollars. Okay, is the minimum to go into the commodity exchange. Many farmers cannot make that minimum. All right. And just to show you how poor people are, they cannot make $230 for that. Okay. So the other thing you could be saying is that you need to get this minimum quantity to go into the exchange. Point well taken. There we tell the farmers to, you know, aggregate, to go with your friend so that you make that minimum. All right. And so that's the second response. So again, to repeat, this modeling and what we see out in the field, we do not think that that quantity margin is working well in the short term. Okay, people just have fixed amount of land and they just produce whatever comes out. Okay, and then they have to decide, am I sending it here or am I sending it there? So there's no differentiation based on quantity unless they are so small that they can't make the minimum requirement of 1 metric ton. Good. All right. Excellent. So good. So I've given you the model, right? I've shown you the search model that explains it. And so this diagram here is beginning to get at the gains from trade, who gets it, who does not get it, right? And so these are the gains from trade. I think I went through it before. Our crop price is 40, 45-degree line is C. Difference between that big triangle here, between 40 and the 45-degree line, P equals 40 and the 45-degree line. That line is the total gains from trade. There's this demarcation point here, C lower bar, right? Those to the left are in the commodity exchange. So again, Yusuf, thank you for pointing out the typo. To the left, you're in the commodity exchange. Low types of people are in the commodity exchange. High types of people are in the BEM. And then over here, like between 37 and 40, these are the strategic rejection people, right? They have a cost less than the 40, but nobody wants to trade with them because traders have better opportunities elsewhere, okay? And so that's what we see across there. These are the gains from trade. These gains from trade hide something, okay? So the gains from trade for those who are in the commodity exchange are B and A for sure, right? In the BEM, on the other hand, I've written it as D and E, but remember, only a fraction of the Ds and Es get that trade, okay? Because matches don't take place, right? And so we have post-harvest losses there. So to the right, everything is with some fractional probability. To the left is with probability 1. And so when you're doing for the aggregate gains from trade, you need to include all of that in it, okay? All right. And so here are the two, the BEM and the CEM side by side, okay? On the left, everybody's on the CEM, everybody's on the BEM. This is before 2018 in Ghana when we introduced the commodity exchange, okay? Or just to give Issouf an incentive, you know, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have been competing since independence. Kwame Nkrumah and Afebuanye were having bets which economy is going to move the fastest. So now, Issouf, I think we beat you to the commodity exchange thing, okay? So we got there first. So the left is Cote d'Ivoire and the right is Ghana, okay? So a little bit of a, you know, brotherly competition here. So on the left, you have the BEM, which is Cote d'Ivoire, and there A and B are the gains from trade, okay? But it's fractional. There's a probability there, okay? G is the deadweight loss caused by strategic rejection. So all of this is on the left, okay? On the right, there are going to be two parts. One part on the left is going to be the commodity exchange. B and A are the gains from trade with probability 1. Okay. On the right, D and E with fractional probability. Okay. And so in the paper, we try and tease out numerically, in our simulations anyway, what the quantity is. Okay. As a general rule, the right will have greater gains from trade because of the CEM part than from on the left. And you can quantify that. And so if you're a government and you're trying to find out what is the value of bringing in this new exchange, that's how you compute it. Okay. All right. So I think I'm almost there.
Yes, you are.
All right. So these are, I could talk about extensions. And I'm going to, as we say in Ghana, I'm going to land now. Meaning I'm going to end my conversation now. And just to say, this is a theoretical model we're doing. I told you earlier on about the randomized control trial that we are doing. And the next project is actually to use our mobile phone apps to create markets. Okay, so rather than going through the commodity exchange, maybe through technology, we can go through that. And this is a picture of Ghana's president coming to my center in the village. Okay, in Kumo, seeing some of our apps where we're trying to create markets. Okay, so on that note, I have landed. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Iso, for this. So, Yao, and Iso for comments, but Yao for excellent presentation and making it so easy to run through a theoretical model in such a way that we understand the way it works, we understand the motivation, we understand the end results. So this is absolutely exceptional and very illuminating. So I suppose I should open for comments and questions, and I'll give the opportunity to Dr. Peter Rose, who is the former Minister of Finance for Seychelles. Peter, you have the floor. Peter, can you unmute? I think you are muted. You are still muted, Peter. I can see your hand up. Yes, you are now unmuted.
Okay.
Yep. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Murinde, and thank you, Professor Nyarko, for a very comprehensive and amazing presentation, and congratulations for that. So my question is very simple. The factors of production, especially for farmers these days, are pretty high, considering all the challenges for them to get to their field to produce, and especially time is a very critical factor of production, which is very, very costly. So given the situation that once they produce, before they reach to the market, it seems that they get a lower price for the output. Isn't it a question of exploitation at its best? I would just like to solicit your answer to that. Then I have supplementary questions later on. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yes, farmers are poor. African farmers are poor. They're a large percentage of the population, and their poverty then translates into low GDP per capita of the nation, right? So you're 100% right on that. What should we be doing about it? We should find additional value for the farmers. Many farmers would like us to find export markets for them, okay? I think that that's the best way, those two ways, enhancing value, finding export markets, that's the clearest way for helping the farmers, okay? Inputs are very, very expensive, and we need to find ways to change all of that, mechanize, if you will, okay? So these are all, you're 100% right. These are the things we are all trying to figure out. What we're doing here is just one piece of that puzzle. To the extent that farmers are, losing 40% of their output, regardless of the price, yeah, we should fix that, okay? And so that's where all of this is coming in. As I said, the floods happened in Ghana the past several months. The price of maize doubled, okay? That's good for farmers, bad for city dwellers who have to buy their eggs, right? And so one part of Ghana, not the whole Ghana, had floods, and so they suffered, but all the other farmers had an increase in their prices. So they were all happy. So instead of the flood, just imagine that production that would have been created, we've been able to take it out and, for example, send it to Nigeria, because I know that Nigeria has issues, or other countries that may have, short-term falls, even within Africa. And so if you're taking the same volume out, the same economics would have said, I know how to double the prices of farmers in 3 months. That's not bad. Okay? All of that is telling you that trade could be very important. Okay, so and again, I'm always teasing Isuf. Isuf, Ghana is the headquarters of Continental Free Trade. Okay, so we got that one too. Okay, and so AFCT, Continental Free Trade Agreement, can open markets, and it's very easy to take out of Ghana the same volume that was taken out by the floods, and then you immediately double the prices. That's excellent. So anyway, that's my view on all of that. You're 100% correct on it. But that's what I'm pushing.
Thanks very much, Yao, and thanks, Peter, for that important and helpful question. Can I call upon Dak before I come back to you, Isuf?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Dak.
Yeah, thank you. I thought this was a really interesting presentation, and my question was actually motivated by your last slide, is on mobile apps, because I suppose isn't it that you would that mobile apps and mobile phone technology could do away with both the bilateral and the commodity exchanges? Do you think that would happen? And would that also change the price for farmers and the profits for farmers, or it might be sort of there are some. In bilateral you have more power perhaps directly if it's a commodity exchange, or if you do it through technology platform and e-commerce, then you may have less power again. So the question is a bit sort of how is that going to work out? And you mentioned the Continental Free Trade Area. The Continental Free Trade Area might also start e-commerce negotiations as well soon. So apart from just giving more markets, it can also change the way in which trade is being conducted. So is it going to be a huge? Isn't it going to be a huge game changer? Isn't it already happening in Ghana? Do you have any percentages of trade that is covered by mobile phone technology already?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that yes, you are thinking 5 years ahead, and that's where we should
sorry
be.
about that. Yeah,
that's absolutely fine. That's we tend to be futuristic here. So yeah, will take us into the future.
Okay, so first, I'm going to agree with you. The future does lie in the mobile phone. Okay, I'm investing my time and energy in there. If you're working on it, let me know. I'll email you afterwards. Yes. Mobile phones are going to be fantastic. And indeed, our advocacy for the commodity exchange started from our earlier work using mobile phones to give farmers price information. That was the very first project that we did, okay? And our goal was always to use it for market. So I'm with you on that. That said, in terms of the role of the commodity exchange they play a number of very important roles that we have to be very clear about, roles which will persist, okay? So one of the things they do is quality control, okay? So they have fixed places where you can objectively test for quality. On the mobile phone, without passage through commodity exchange, you can't test, and everything's going to break down, okay? Without a third party being able to test these things, it's not going to work. The commodity exchange also has the warehouse system. The warehouse system, you can put your goods there for storage. The storage part is good, but what's also good about it is there's an implicit insurance there. So if the commodity exchange says that this is grade 1 and they take your maize and put it in their warehouse, you as the purchaser, you are guaranteed grade 1 maize, and the exchange has purchased insurance so that should you take it out and you find some aflatoxins in there, meaning that it's grade 4, you can ask the exchange to replace it, okay? And so there's also that insurance mechanism in there. So you need these kinds of things to build the market, right? Okay, so let's now roll the clock forward 5 years. Everybody's using their mobile phones. What we've started to do is to take pictures so that you can see the commodity, but that's as far as you can go with a commodity exchange. You need somebody to physically test the quality of the good. Take a random sample, put it in a moisture meter, put it in an aflatoxin meter to test for aflatoxins. That structure, even if a trade is not, even if the goods are not stored in the commodity exchange, the exchange still has a role, okay? Even if the trading doesn't take place through the exchange, okay? The exchange still has a role in certifying that this is grade 1 versus grade 2. So I think that the exchange itself will always be there in some capacity or the other, even with the mobile phone.
So always 3 markets. There will be 3 markets in coexistence. Yeah, always. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring back Isof and then Korapon Oladapo, and then I can go back to Peter. So Isof.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this great presentation, Samuel. Like from listening to it, it looks like theoretical models are very easy, but I'm sure this model is not that easy, but you make it much very easy, for us to understand by the way. And for that, I give up. Ghana win, actually, okay? Okay, but when you are comparing actually your BEM model and your CM model, I didn't see anywhere where you are kind of discussing actually your PC. You see the price the farmer is getting from a bilateral trade, and then your T, which is actually the cost going from the stock exchange. Because I think it will depend on the two. Because basically, if you look at the structure for some of the products, actually, the middleman and the middleman play a big role in terms of really the level of the PC. If you have really very corrupted middleman, then the PC can be very, very low and can be very low for the farmer actually. Then in that sense, maybe the commodity exchange can be better. Then, maybe you did it in the paper, but I didn't see, that discussion anywhere actually, because I think it will depend a lot on your PC and on your TAO, assuming that the C is the same for all the farmer and the capital P also is the same for, in Ghana for everyone. Now the Accra price, the capital P actually. Okay.
Okay. Let me try and talk. So here are the different pieces of an answer. So maybe first you're talking about capital P, cap P, Accra price. So that one will be affected by general equilibrium. Okay. So on the one hand, you could say that now that we have a commodity exchange, maybe farmers are going to be producing more, and so capital P will fall, right? Alternatively, you could say now that we have a commodities exchange, traders, flour mills, poultry farmers, instead of going abroad for maize, instead they will get it locally. And so demand could go up, right? And so we don't know the final effect of cap P. So I hope you're still there, Yusuf. Your screen went off.
Yes, I'm still here. I'm still here.
So that's my answer to cap P. Big P, Accra price. I don't know which way it could go. It depends on demand and supply things, okay? The next thing you said was about middlemen and the effect on P of C. The way we have modeled P of C in this paper is to say that there's bargaining going on between the trader and the farmer for those gains from trade, right? That means that we are saying that there are limited number of traders, okay? So traders are relatively few, and so there's bargaining going on. We believe that that's a good assumption because the traders need capital, okay? You need capital to become a trader, and capital is scarce, okay? So the amount of capital that you have constrains the number of traders. An alternative assumption, if capital wasn't scarce, then you could say you have large numbers of traders going in there. So if there's perfect entry of traders, then the profit of traders would be driven to zero, right? In which case, if the farmer side is still limited, it means that the farmer gets all the gains from trade, okay? So that's an alternative model. We decided not to do that because we believe that both farmers and traders are relatively limited. Farmers are limited by the amount of land that is there. Traders are limited by the fact that you need capital, and capital is expensive, very expensive in poor countries, okay? So that's why we made those kind of assumptions. Then finally, in terms of costs of the exchange, those costs, as I said, going back to Arthur Lewis, those are fixed and they are big, okay? So we've been in the field and we know that some farmers, they begin to cry when they see all the fees. 40% of the value of the crop are fees to the exchange, okay? Even in the lower cases, it's like 15%. That's a lot for some of these farmers, okay? All right, so those are my answers, but good questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Both you Issoffa, good question, and your good response. And actually, there is a lot in where finance comes in a big way between the comment by Issof and Nyarko. And I think there should be, another paper extending from this, which would be Nyarko, Murinde, and others in 2 dimensions. One is actually to move from spot prices to futures prices, to think about future contracts where this could be there, because that could also deal with the problem of capital. I think it will require a new model, but let's think about, moving into future prices, and so that we can look, the options in optional pricing work. The second one is you are proceeding from BEM to CEM model. Absolutely, yes. Analytically, that's absolutely elegant, but actually in many African countries, the farmers were moving from a commodity, what we call commodity boards, the coffee commodity board, cocoa commodity board, okay, and also cooperatives type of models. Okay, so there is something intermediate, and how we can explore that so that we have models that show the transition from marketing boards or cooperatives to the new world of commodity exchanges, which is the right, that would show the transition. But those maybe those papers are still unwritten, or they've been written by now, knowing how many papers he has. But but if they are not, they could be written. Okay, yeah. So let me then do. We have just a couple of minutes remaining. Let me call upon Jeffrey. This is a very smart young researcher from our center. Jeffrey, you have a question. Please be quick. Yeah, be short.
Okay, thank you, Victor. My quick question is, when farmers deposit their harvest in a warehouse, they get a warehouse receipt, which they take to a bank or a financing agent to get a loan. And in some cases, when they get a loan, they have insurance agent involved in case of default and all of that. So when farmers eventually sells the product to a buyer, so then the buyer gets the payment directly to the bank or to the agent, then the agent now sends the warehouse receipt to the buyer directly, who then collects the product from the warehouse. So my point is this: the bargaining power of the farmer, because at the point that the farmer collected that loan that the goods have not even been sold. So I was wondering whether you are just for this kind of, because at the point that the goods are sold, the farmer is already out of the equation, because the goods were going to be sold anyway, even if the price is very low. So I was wondering whether you are just for this impact of lower bargaining power at the time the goods are sold. Thank you.
Yeah. So so just for the record, the when you get a warehouse receipt, the warehouse receipt and the loan, all of that is between the farmer and the banker. Okay. All right. So the bank is the one that negotiates, the terms, collateral, and all of that. Okay. At a different place is you have the warehouse receipt and the trading on the floor with a buyer. Okay. So the buyer is actually unaware of and actually doesn't care about the fact that this thing, the warehouse receipt, there's a loan on it or not. Okay. All right. And so the loan is always a fraction of the estimated value of the commodity. And so, the banker, there's very little risk on behalf of the banker, right? Because the banker has a warehouse receipt. The goods are in the warehouse, and it's not going to get lost. I mean, if once the banker has the warehouse receipt, it's insured. Okay. Okay. So it's in that sense that I don't think the changes, there are many changes in bargaining power because of the warehouse receipt system. Okay. Because they're sort of orthogonal. They're two different things. Okay. At least that's the way they've structured it in Ghana, in the Ghanaian Commodity Exchange. Okay. And I think they did it for precisely the correct reason that you just mentioned. All right. So actually, now that I think about it, your comment is great, because it's saying that the way they designed it is actually a good thing for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you. Yeah.
Can I have a quick follow-up?
Yep.
Okay.
Very quick one. We are running out of time, Jeffrey.
The reason I asked this question is that what I'm working on is collateral registry, which is the platform that these transactions are taking place. So, because the way I'm looking at it is that I think what I would do, I have few other questions. I'm going to send you an email to explain everything, and I'll see how you respond. Thank you.
I'm happy to talk further with you on this. Okay. I love the topic. Okay. So happy to talk.
And Jeffrey, well done to borrow from your, current research and try to look at it in view of, I think Yao has excited your mind a little bit further. Brilliant. That's, great. So, Peter, can I give you 1 minute to conclude? We are just have 1 minute remaining. I give it to you, Peter.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, yeah. I'm going to ask you a very provocative questions. Given our endeavor to find out the best deal on the export market, we've got no reason to sit back, because now we have an African leading the World Trade Organization. So this is our time, and it's our time to rise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that very concluding comment. I should also mention, and if Peter can mention this, Peter was the lead executive director of the World Bank, including IFC, when IFC was funding Ghana. So I think he has an insight that I think what was going on at that particular time. Yao, you've been absolutely, excellent, absolutely fascinating as usual, sharing with us this very provocative research. And in my notes, I have written down that if you were, say, in any UK university, including SOAS, you would have get 100 returns from your impact case study. We do impact case studies whereby you've done your research and it translates to something. So here is a case where you did your research and it generated the Ghana Commodity Exchange. So we bring our hands together, for all this work you have done. And, thanks very much. We remain in touch with you, and thanks for sacrificing all the time. Let me also thank all the participants for being able to make it to this meeting today. So, and I look forward to seeing you next week on another exciting seminar. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure.
Thank you.